Welcome everyone. My name's James Boyle. I'm the editor for the news for the Australian Chinese Jockey Club, and we're starting something new today, which is a audio update of the horses we've got running. And this is something we'll probably do every month going forward, and then weekly during the busy season. So I'm joined today by Teresa Poon, who's the ACJC chairperson, and John Blight, who's a bloodstock and racing advisor to ACJC. So welcome, Teresa and John.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
So maybe we'll kick it off, Teresa, with yourself. I know you've just come back from supporting our runner Royal Patronage in Hong Kong. And also in January, you had we had the Magic Millions Carnival, where you were honoured as the TAB Racing and Women for Victoria Award. So it's been a great year already, but perhaps just for the audience, if you look back over the last 12 months, what's been the highlight for ACJC in your mind?
So in fact, when I went to Hong Kong, John Blight actually went with me because he is also part of our $1 Million Club syndicate.
That's right.
Yeah, so as you said, the year has been very, very kind to myself as well as to the club. In January, I was very honored to be awarded the Racing Women Award in Victoria, which is for me, myself is a very, very great honor and very humbled. But basically, my award was due to the hard work of everyone at Australian Chinese Jockey Club. I was being recognized for my work in starting the Australian Chinese Jockey Club for 10 years, and also particularly for the recent initiative of running the Racing 101 program, aiming to, I can't say educate, but introduce to the young people the many facets of horse racing, thoroughbred racing, aiming to correct or do away with the negativity image of horse racing being mainly gambling and cruelty to horses. So this is a big recognition, but it's also a big recognition to the club for the work that we have done so far. In racing, we have been promoting horse ownership for a while. And the highlight definitely was Royal Patronage, winning a couple of group races, and the one that is the group one that we won, the Canterbury Stake.
Canterbury Stakes.
And Canterbury Stake, and then followed by a very, very thrilling second in the Doncaster in this year. And therefore, we then took the horse to Hong Kong. John came with me, and look, how often we can get our owners to go to Hong Kong, watch our own horse racing. And in particular, for Australian Jockey Club, it is very meaningful, is this group of owners, most of them are mainly from Hong Kong. And they came to Australia about 30 years ago, or 20 or 30 years ago. They all make a very, very good living and a good start in Australia. Had it not been horse ownership, we would have never met. And lo and behold, this horse brought us all back to Hong Kong. This is just actually quite unbelievable and also very rewarding. So I would say that so far, everything has been very kind. Everyone has been very kind. What happened with the horse ownership, as well as what's going on with Australian Chinese Jockey Club.
Fantastic, Teresa. It certainly has been a great 12 months. I agree. John, just yourself. I know we had a lunch last weekend at Mitchelton Winery, and John was hosting a number of his own owners and also ACJC owners there, and you really wowed the crowd with your knowledge of racing and the recollection of all the horses and their pedigrees and things that you own. So perhaps for yourself, John, out of all the horses you own, ACJC or otherwise, which would be the most most excited about currently?
Look, I think if I categorise them into the horses that the ACJC race, of which I'm a part owner in each one of the syndicates with Teresa, I think Royal Patronage has to sit as number one because he's a Group 1 winner. He was a Doncaster runner-up, beaten a lip, and he placed in the Epsom, and he's just raced at Group 1 level pretty much for 12 months in Australia and done remarkably well. I think that he's returned to Australia. He's doing his quarantine in Australia. Then he'll have a spell, and then they'll regroup and pick out some appropriate targets in the later part of the Spring Carnival. I'd imagine the Champions Mile at Flemington would probably feature as his most likely, grand final in the spring. I think Alicante, the grey mare by Master Craftsman, who scored a series of thrilling victories through the autumn, the Randwick City Stakes, when taken on pretty much the whole way for 2,000 metres, and she had the audacity to kick away from them. The Manion Cup, which was just breathtaking, winning by 5 lengths, and then the Chairman's Quality at Group 2 level, a big field of 20, and she absolutely once again annihilated them. Albeit that she was hot and fizzled and didn't get things her own way in the Sydney Cup, and as a consequence, ended a bit tired towards the back. But the jockey was quite kind on her and let her find her own way home and tail the field. I think that come the springtime, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. I think she's as good as any staying horse in Australia, and I think she's as good as any staying horse that's likely to be contesting the Spring Cups. So I think she could easily become our number one seed in the spring, because she'll race for the majority of the spring with the specific target of those Spring Cups, the Caulfield Cup and the Melbourne Cup. And I'd be really surprised if she didn't feature very prominently in at least one, if not both of them. And then in the same vein, Vauban, who was purchased following last year's Melbourne Cup by the Waterhouse Bott stable in conjunction with Australian Bloodstock, is a new addition to the ACJC stable this autumn. His 3 runs were fantastic. I'd call that all bonus, because they've specifically purchased him for an attempt at a third attempt at the Melbourne Cup, and his performances during the autumn were electrifying, really. To come back and win over 2,000 metres, a distance he'd never contested, because this is a horse that's won 3 times over 2 miles in hurdles. To win a Group 2 race over 2,000 metres, sprinting home over the top of a very good weight for age horse in Lindemann, was just an amazing start to ownership of Vauban. The ACJC were there in force that day and really enjoyed the win. To then run third in the Tancred Stake behind an absolute world-class horse in Dubai Honor, and very unlucky to run third. He was probably a little bit too far back against where the intended position was to be, and he didn't have the best of passage in the straight. So he stormed home, ran third, and that was an exciting performance. He then contested the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, which was always going to be a tough task for him, dropping back in distance to 2,000 metres. He's more of a specialist 3,200 metre horse, contesting the best weight for age race of the autumn over 2,000 metres against the best weight for age horses. A tall task, but he ran quite admirably. So Vauban and Alicante are in the paddock and soon to resume and get set for what we think will be an exciting spring. Alicante's probably chasing both the Caulfield and Melbourne Cups, and Vauban more likely just to focus on the Melbourne Cup. I think for the ACJC owners, I think exciting times ahead in the spring. Other horses that I've got a personal interest in, some members that are members of ACJC race with me, but not necessarily ACJC horses. I'll nominate 3 horses. The first is a horse called Royal Supremacy. He's a European 4-year-old purchased last year with us after a string of really great performances in top class 3-year-old races. He makes his debut most likely next week. This week he is nominated for the Scone Cup, but I believe he's third emergency and probably unlikely to run. So he'll probably make his Australian debut next Saturday at Randwick, and I would be very surprised if he didn't make a forward showing. He's campaigned through Queensland, where he'll move to after the Randwick run, is all about acclimatising himself to Australian racing, and then he'll be targeting the Spring Cups. He's a definite Caulfield Melbourne Cup horse. He's of that standard, and I'm pretty sure he'll make his presence felt in the spring. More immediately, and Teresa and I are both in part ownership of Rise at Dawn. He's just a wonderful horse. He's just the perfect horse you'd love to own. He tries his heart out. He just doesn't like losing. He's won 8 races, and he's won 8 races from 15 starts. So his win record's extremely good. He was beaten less than a nose in the Doncaster after leading all of the way. He was second behind Royal Patronage, 3 strides from home. It looked like at one stage we might be able to get the Quinella, and we've ended up with second with Royal Patronage and 4th with Rise at Dawn. It was just the most thrilling race to have 2 runners that not only performed admirably but were literally in the photo finish for first. Was just stunning. Rise at Dawn trials in the morning. His second trial post the Doncaster. He then heads up to the BRC Sprint on the 24th of May as his lead-in race to the Stradbroke. And if I was giving an early tip for the Stradbroke, I'd think at $15, I think he's extremely good value for a horse that I'd be disappointed if he didn't finish in the top 3 in that race. And then the third horse, once again, has just resumed last week, Warney. We purchased this horse in Europe at a ready-to-run sale. He made his debut as a 2-year-old at Royal Ascot. He then won a listed race in Ireland and then ran 5th in a Group 3 race in France. He was then brought to Australia at the end of his 2-year-old career, and with the time at the differential in breeding seasons, he came to Australia as essentially a 4-year-old. Won on debut at 25-1 at Flemington in the spring. Placed at Group 3 level in the group in a weight for age race at Caulfield, and resumed on Saturday in the Takeover Target Stakes. One more stride probably wins. He ran 4th. It was a blanket finish. It was a very tight track for him. He's a big striding horse. He also goes to Brisbane next, most likely in the BRC Sprint, and chasing a run into the Stradbroke. He's a little lower rated than Rise at Dawn, so may struggle to get into the Stradbroke unless he wins a race like the BRC Sprint that gives a win and you're in status. And if he doesn't get into the Stradbroke, there's plenty of other group races for him in the winter. And I'd imagine he'll be a horse that'll be targeting races like the Rupert Clarke and the Toorak come the spring. He's a very good horse. He's by Highland Reel. He's improving all of the time. As he's acclimatised to Australian conditions, I believe that he's got the ability to be a very good horse in very good races come the spring, and we should see that in the winter. So that would be my 6 horses to follow, if you want a list.
So that was Royal Patronage, Alicant's, Vauban,
Yep.
ACJC, and then you had Royal Supremacy,
Yes.
Rise at Dawn, and Warney.
Correct.
Thank you very much, John. That's a couple for a couple.
That will be those 3 will be in the winter, which is more immediate.
Correct. So you got three looking at winter races, and 3 for the spring.
So perhaps Teresa, that strategy for ACJC of buying these proven European stayers, bringing them to Australia, obviously partnering with the Waterhouse Bott stable traditionally. How did that come about? And is that a strategy you're intending to continue to follow into the future, do you think?
This is an exercise that we like to, get more owners involved, to get more our members to become owners. So with the what I can say, with the import and the ready to run, what is not ready to run is, what is the word?
Tried horses.
Tried horses.
Yeah.
The tried horses. One of the benefits is we have a record of their races, that they have proven themselves to be quite a good horses. And also, we don't, unlike the yearling, we don't really need the members to wait for a year or 2 before we can see the results. So obviously, we paid a little bit higher in prices, but that is the cost, the price that we have to pay for getting track records. This has become very, very successful and very popular by a little bit of luck, probably. And also with Gay and Adrian's selection, we managed to get into some very, very good horses. So this was successfully, we have successfully got quite a number of owners that are interested. And that has proven to be a very fun and very effective way of getting owners to be involved without them having to wait for too long. And now that we have put scores on the board, and we can, and of course, when we pay the higher prices, the risk will be higher. We don't always come away with some very, very good horses. There are, of course, some not so good horses that we manage to, retire or to sell them and recoup some of the price of the cost. And with that, we have, and as you can just heard, that John is a very, very experienced and very passionate horse owners, and also he is very good in the form of the horses and and the bloodline, and he is very astute in choosing his horses. We are very and John is the vice chairman of Moonee Valley Racing Club and also the chair of the racing subcommittee. So we were very, very lucky and very grateful that we can get John involved, and with his advice, we can now actually move forward and try a different formula. And that is buying a few yearlings that we can own a little bit more shares and race in our ACJC colors. So over the years, we have actually learned a lot, and we have actually graduate into not only just lucky owners, but with a little bit of knowledge, and everyone is enjoying that kind of knowledge. And we can move on to try a different format of horse ownership. And we now can, with John's advice, we are owning some very, very nice fillies. The reason why we own fillies is they always have residual value, and if we are good enough, we can win a few stake races, and that we will actually make money out of it. So with ACJC, so many years of ownership, we are progressing and matured into some a more how should I say it, educated, knowledgeable ownership group.
And I'd say a diversified portfolio so that we're not just buying the same type of horse. The ACJC has been extremely successful with staying horses. There's a lot of races that aren't staying races. And, as highlighted by Royal Patronage, who's a sprinter miler, might stretch to 2,000 meters, but that sprinter miler is, I guess, where the heart of racing is in Australia as well. So if you've got a horse that's got speed and can race in those kind of sprint slash mile races, that opens a whole new array of races. And we were successful in this current season with a Group 1 win over 1,300. In previous seasons, the ACJC have tasted Group 1 success at 2,400 in the Metropolitan, 3,200 in the Sydney Cup and Brisbane Cups. So there's nothing wrong with having some stayers, and we've got some fantastic staying prospects, but we don't want them all to be stayers. We'd like to be able to contest different types of races, and hence the diversification into yearlings as well, which gives us the opportunity to have horses that either contesting 2-year-old races or 3-year-old classic races, and they might be, once again, sprints or mile races, not necessarily derbies, to give us that real diversification. And the ACJC $1 Million 6 has got quite the diversification. It's got staying fillies, it's got stayers, it's got yearlings, it's got horses bred to be milers. So we're looking at that full diversification, and then it comes down to taking the advice of our trainers in terms of what the pedigrees are, the conformations, and also considering what the price is, and allocating a certain amount of money within our syndicate for a different type of horse. So we might pay a bit more, as Teresa said, for a proven top level staying horse or miler, and we might pay a little bit less for an unproven yearling. But all in all, we've got that diversification, and that's really what we're looking for these days.
So, John, I know we've been active recently at the yearling sales. Perhaps you could just run us through some of the yearlings that the ACJC has brought in this
Yeah,
year,
sure.
and what you were looking for.
All up, the ACJC syndicates bought into 6 yearlings across 4 sales, starting at Magic Millions. Magic Millions, what was ACJC looking to get involved with? Well, really nice types that could be early running types, i.e. run at 2, and ideally train on at 3. So we went for those kind of types. We went for a colt and a filly, and we looked at this in particular that fit within our budget. We looked at the best pedigrees that we could possibly get involved with. So we ended up with a colt by Wootton Bassett and a filly by Too Darn Hot. And if you were going to think about who are the hottest stallions at the moment globally, they would be 2 of the top 5. There's no doubt about it. And Wootton Bassett in Europe is standing for about 500,000 Australian dollars. He's standing for 385,000 Australian dollars in Australia, which is a record. Too Darn Hot has come back at 300,000, I think, Australian dollars. So we're talking about the absolute upper echelon of the size to be in Australia, and we've been able to successfully purchase into a really lovely filly out of an Exceed and Excel mare, and the colt by Wootton Bassett, who's already up to jump out stage. So he's quite forward, and we look forward to seeing him probably get to the trials at least in the spring. So that was our first foray into the purchase of yearlings, and they're with the Waterhouse Bott stable. In New Zealand, we looked at a bit more diversification and diversification of trainers as well. The hottest 2-year-old trainers in Australia at the moment are the Hazers, and they're sort of about double in terms of winners than any other trainer this season. They've got a phenomenal process and been able to identify horses that will be able to race at 2 and win. And so we participated with them in a filly by first season sire in New Zealand's Sword of State, a Group 1 winner, who's a son of Snitzel. And the filly is a half sister to a horse that I was lucky enough to race called Ruthless Dame, who's a Group 1 winner in Australia. She won the Robert Sangster Stakes, placed in the Group 1 Surround Stakes, was 5th in the Stradbroke. She was a $2 million earner and sold for $2 million to Northern Farm and's in foal to Equinox. So we bought a filly that I think's, from a residual point of view, what we paid for is every day of the week is what she's worth. And if she can win some races and if she can get some black type, she'll be worth quite a bit more. So we saw her, as you know, James, we saw her at Lindsay Park about a couple of weeks ago. And she's really grown since we purchased her in New Zealand. And I'd expect her to be more of a 3-year-old type than a 2-year-old type. And I'd expect her to be probably a sprinter miler. We also purchased a filly by Hello Youmzane, leading first season sire in New Zealand, Group 1 winner at Royal Ascot, and also a dual Group 1 winner in Europe. Purchased by Cambridge Stud several years ago now, and he shuttles between New Zealand, Cambridge Stud, and in France. I think he's going to be the leading first season sire or he was the leading first season sire last year in Europe, in France, and he's going to be the leading first season sire in New Zealand this season. We bought a filly to be trained by Annabelle and Rob Neesham out of a Savabeel mare. Definitely a 3-year-old type, definitely a miler. And so she's in the spelling paddock and she'll be given all the time that she needs. There's no rush with her. We then moved to the classic sale, and Teresa's relationship with the Freedmans came to the fore with specifying we had a particular budget in mind, and we were looking for a horse that would probably be more of a 3-year-old middle distance type, and we ended up with a Toronado colt. Toronado, just a wonderful sire in Victoria, and doesn't get all the accolades that he deserves, but he's just an amazing sire with winners to runners percentage that's as good as any stallion out there. And the Freedmans have this knack of finding horses at very affordable prices that just get a return well in excess of their purchase price. So this yearling will take time. We've purchased it as a middle distance type, and quite happy to be patient. Conversely, we worked with the Hazers at the Melbourne Premier Sale to find us we basically gave them a brief. We wanted a filly. We wanted something that would be probably able to get up and running at 2, really nicely conformed. Didn't care so much about the pedigree, but we didn't want the filly to be any late in the productions record of the mare of 5th foal. That was important to us. The team scoured the complex, came up with a short list, put some prices on it that were sort of in our range, and we worked basically day by day on bidding for those horses. It was pretty competitive. I think there was a few other people that came up with the same horses that we were interested in, but on the final day of the Melbourne Premier, we were able to secure a Pinatubo filly at the price that we wanted, that met all of our criteria. And this filly will race in the ACJC colours, as will the in time the Toronado colt, which is also important to us in securing a sufficient equity interest in these horses that they can race in the ACJC colours. The sort of state filly will not race in the colours of ACJC, but there's only 4 owners. The Hello Youmzane filly though will. We're the biggest shareholder in that filly. So that was important to us at these sales as well, that we ended up with the biggest equity percentage so that they could race and in the ACJC colours to promote the ACJC, and also, I guess that connectivity for the owners in the syndicate, that that sense of belonging to those horses is really important. So and we obviously have a bit more influence in relation to the what happens with their horses' careers. So we've ended up with a really interesting selection. Horses by the elite stallions, by emerging stallions, and by proven stallions. And we've got a mix of fillies and colts. We've got a mix of horses that we'd expect to be racing as 2-year-olds, some that will be racing more likely at 3, horses that will be sprinters, horses that will be milers, and horses that will be middle distance horses. So that's really, what we're more trying to focus on, is getting that diversity, fulfilling our brief of having a sufficiently large stake that the horse can race in the ACJC colours, that ticks the boxes in terms of what we're looking for, but we're relying on the expertise of our trainers to actually identify suitable horses for our consideration, because we're not, we don't know everything. We know a bit, but we rely on the real experts to come up with those selections for us. And hopefully, in the next 12 months to 18 months, we start to see those horses on the track, and hopefully they perform admirably for us.
Yeah, it's as you can see, John, it's a lot of work, isn't it, across the sales, understanding what we're after, and then working, obviously, as you say, with the trainers to find the right horse that we can sort of go in partnership with. So
I'll just say on that, the one thing is that we participate with the trainers at the sales. So we walk around, Teresa and I in particular, we walk around the sales complexes with the trainers or with the shortlists from the trainers on their recommendations, and go and do our own inspections, not for what it's worth, notwithstanding that we're going to rely on the trainers principally, but we'll go and at least have eyeballed the horses that have been recommended. So at least we've got some knowledge about what it is that we're looking to buy into. So we did that at Teresa and I together did that at several of the sales, and then I went over to New Zealand as well. So one thing's for sure, all of the horses that we bought into, we could hand on our heart say that we had a look at them, worked with our trainers, and we're very comfortable to have purchased those particular horses.
May I just also add that it is a lot of work, but also it is very interesting. For those who are interested in learning, it is a very good opportunity to walk around and look at the horses, look at the bloodline, look at the families. And the trainers are very welcome, because we are, after all, can be their potential clients. And it is a very, very interesting. James, you have been there, and it's for those who are interested. It is actually a very interesting process, and also a very good opportunity to learn about bloodline and about the confirmation of horses. And like what John said just now is so interesting for those who find the time to come along with us. Everyone is very welcome.
And I know,
and the other thing too is that it's not just Teresa and I making the decisions. There's an advisory group for the ACJC, of which we all have a say in making the recommendations for purchase. So, we might be the eyes on the horses in the flesh, but there's another 4 people that participate in any discussion about ownership, percentage, whether or not we're going to purchase a horse that's a tried horse or a yearling, who's the trainer. All of those decisions are taken quite seriously by our horse advisory panel.
Yeah, and I know to credit to you both, we're in those latter 2 yearlings. We've got a number of new owners to ACJC, and they were up visited the Lindsay Park last week, and so as you say, Teresa, and they came along to the Premier Sale as well. So it's a really good way to bring new people in. So perhaps just finally, so we are looking ahead now to the Brisbane Carnival. I know last year we very narrowly missed the Doomben Cup with New Endeavour. Teresa, is there any ACJC runners for us to keep an eye on?
In the winter, John has just said that the 3 that we have to watch, keep an eye on, and perhaps a little bet on. It's not too early to put in an early bet and get a profit. So basically, they are remind me, John. Rise at Dawn.
So Rise at Dawn, Royal Supremacy, and Warney, they've got some common owners of that are in the ACJC and in some of those horses. The ACJC horses racing in Brisbane will probably include Just Fine, most likely to be the Doomben Cup. New Endeavour's probably not going back to chase the Doomben Cup this year after last week's run in the Gosford Cup. I think they're likely to avoid the Doomben Cup and go to the Lord Mayor's Cup in Sydney. Just Fine's more likely to head to the Doomben Cup and the Q22, both $1 million races in Brisbane. Osmos resumes on Saturday in the Burnborough Handicap. She's most likely going to chase the same kind of mares races that she contested in the last 2 years in Brisbane, the National Classic, and there's a couple of other high value group races, sort of worth $500,000 that she'll chase. They're probably our most likely contestants up in Brisbane this year, and then I think everything else will be racing probably in Sydney or getting ready for the spring. So I think we'll have the only other horse that might swing up there is New Endeavour, depending on how he goes in the Lord Mayor's Cup. So there are suitable races for him, like the Ipswich Cup, or there's another Lord Mayor's Cup actually in Brisbane. So they're sort of races that I imagine if they do ultimately take him to Brisbane, that they'd look at that style of race.
Okay, well, look, thanks very much, John and Teresa. I think the purpose of this is we put out our monthly newsletters and things to our members, but it'd be great to publish these online updates as a podcast or as a online web view on a more regular basis as well. So thanks very much, Teresa. Thanks very much, John.
Thank you.
And hopefully in our next update, we will have some good results, winners reporting.